So today, we're going to dig into a classic fable, the story of a milkman named Monsuk. And, it's a tale that perfectly shows how these tiny little compromises we make can snowball into a total catastrophic downfall. Let's get right into it. See, to everyone in his village, Monsuk was the absolute ideal. They saw this poor, humble guy who was just unbelievably reliable. He built up this amazing reputation by selling the cheapest milk around, and he delivered it to your door without ever being late. He was, for all intents and purposes, a pillar of the community. And right there, that's the question that sits at the very heart of this whole story. Because behind that squeaky clean image of honesty, there was a secret, a deception that was just going to get bigger and bigger with every single delivery he made. Okay, so here's our roadmap for his downfall. We're going to start with the mask he wore in public, then we'll uncover that secret he was hiding in the milk, we'll watch him slide into a deal with some criminals, see the law start to close in, witness the one fatal mistake that brings it all down, and finally, look at the devastating price he paid for it all. First things first, let's really peel back the layers on the character Monsuk was playing. Because this wasn't just a job for him. No way. It was a performance, a meticulous one, designed to win trust, and maybe more importantly, to keep any and all suspicion far, far away. And this is where you really see how deliberate his whole act was. The cheap prices, the perfect punctuality, that all built a really solid foundation of trust. But the real masterstroke, that old beat-up bicycle. It was literally a prop, a conscious choice to make sure he looked poor so nobody would ever ask where his money was really coming from. Okay, so now it's time to pull that mask off and see what's really going on. It all kicked off with one simple, calculated compromise. Just a little lie to make a little more profit. And wow, this slide just lays it all out, doesn't it? The villagers saw an honest, poor, simple man. But the reality, he was deceptive, driven by this hidden greed, and way more cunning than anybody could have possibly imagined. So his first secret was arrowroot powder. It's basically a cheap, tasteless starch that works as a thickener. By mixing it into the fresh milk, he could stretch his product, selling more than he actually had. It was a small, seemingly harmless fraud that was padding his pockets every single day. And this quote, this tells you everything you need to know about his mindset. His wife suggests, hey, why don't you get a scooter or something to replace that bike that's always breaking down? And he shoots the idea down. Not because he can't afford it, but because it would completely shatter that illusion of poverty he'd worked so hard to build. In this right here, this is the moment everything changes. His simple little deception is about to escalate into a full-blown criminal enterprise. His greed is about to find some new and much more dangerous partners. It all went down in a single afternoon. His bicycle breaks down again. While he's waiting for it to get fixed, he shares some of his milk with a couple of strangers. To his absolute horror, they take one sip and instantly know it's been tampered with. But instead of blowing his cover, they see a business opportunity. They offer him something new, something way more potent. And get this was their sales pitch. They didn't threaten him, they tempted him. They didn't present themselves as blackmailers, but as business partners who could take his little scam to the next level. They framed a crime as a growth opportunity. It's brilliant, in a terrible sort of way. And here was the hook that he just couldn't resist. They promised this new powder, which was addictive, would quadruple his demand. Customers wouldn't just like his milk, they would crave it. I mean, for a guy like Monsuk, the promise of a 400% increase in business, there was no way he was turning that down. Greed won hands down. So just as Monsuk is getting his new venture off the ground, an unexpected threat rolls into the village. A threat that's about to put his entire carefully built world on the verge of total collapse. And that threat comes in the form of a guy named Manoj. He's not even there on official business. He's just a police officer visiting his aunt for a few days. But the very fact that he's a cop sends the shockwave of pure panic right through Monsuk. I mean, you can just see the panic setting in here. The second he hears the word police, he drops his milk can. Then he lies and says his whole supply has gone bad. Then he fakes an illness for days just to stop all his deliveries. He basically just goes into hiding. His entire strategy is just to wait it out and pray that Manoj leaves town. And that brings us to the climax. Monsuk is convinced he's in the clear and he's ready to restart his operation. but it's an act of misguided help from his wife that's about to lead to a critical and ultimately devastating mistake. So Munsuk sees Minaj at the station, bags in hand, and he breathes this huge sigh of relief. The threat is gone, right? He heads to the barn to mix up his first batch of the drugged milk in days. But his wife, just trying to be helpful, has already been there. And this is it. This is where the fatal mistake happens. His wife finds the one packet of powder Mansuk was planning to use. But then she sees 4 empty packets he'd thrown on the ground. She thinks he just dropped them by accident, and wanting to help, she puts all 5 portions of the powder into a single can of milk. She's just created a dangerously potent accidental overdose. And these words from Officer Manunj himself, well, they pretty much seal Mansuk's fate. After delivering that super potent milk, he's confronted by the police officer. He's back. And the effect of that milk was so immediate, so powerful, there was just no denying what was in it.
And now, we're at the final act. All the lies, all the deception, it is all about to come crashing down as the consequences of his actions finally and inevitably catch up to him. You know, it was just a simple twist of fate. Manoj's train got canceled. He comes back to his aunt's house just in time to be served a glass of that incredibly potent milk. And that dizzying effect, it instantly connected all the dots for him. Mansuk's sudden illness, his panicked behavior, it all made perfect, terrible sense. The puzzle was solved. So what's the big takeaway here? I think the story is just such a powerful reminder that first small compromise is usually the most dangerous one. Deception becomes a full-time job that just demands more and more lies to keep it going. And ultimately, greed makes you blind. It makes you blind to the very risks that are going to bring you down. In the end, there just are no shortcuts to real, lasting success. It really just leaves us with this one lingering question, doesn't it? Mansuk started with just a little bit of arrowroot powder, a seemingly harmless lie to make a bit of extra cash. But as we've seen, those small deceptions, well, they have a way of demanding a much, much higher price than we ever expect to pay.